I was doing my Sunday night drives for extra money with DoorDash and Uber Eats. My friends show me how to use both at the same time and make more money per hour. One of the biggest issues with doing delivery services is that you have a lot of downtime where you just drive around waiting for an order to pop up. But if you work both apps at the same time, you can get rid of all that downtime and constantly be making money. So I was doing this for a few hours, racing back and forth between houses and restaurants, when I got a small order from a nearby restaurant, but the house was far away. These are the worst kinds of orders because you drive far and get paid less, though this one offered a large amount, meaning the tip must be crazy big. Accepting it, I picked up the order and began the 25-minute drive to their address. Halfway through the drive, while on a side road, I got a call from the app, assumingly being the customer. I answered, asking if this was my Uber Eats customer. A man confirmed he was my customer and apologized profusely, saying he ordered from his friend's account and forgot to change the address. He said his house was just around the block though, and he proceeded to give me directions, telling me a couple turns to take once I reached the friend's house. I asked him for the address just in case I got lost, but he responded saying I'll see him outside waiting for him, then hung up. Obviously, this shit was not normal. However, I was more than halfway there at this point, and I gave the man the benefit of the doubt, as forgetting to switch it from your friend's address seemed like a legit thing that could happen. It could have also been the fact that I was a bigger guy that helped me convince myself to go through with the delivery, as I wasn't really afraid of anything. When I got to the supposed friend's house, I took the turns as the man had said and drove down a dimly lit neighborhood road until I reached a no outlet sign and saw the road ended just a few houses down. Feeling confident I had taken the turns as the man had said, I pulled over and grabbed my phone to call the customer. Just as I was clicking into my recent calls, a knock at my driver window made me jump. A bit embarrassed at how noticeably startled I was, I rolled the window down to greet him, but looking up at the man, his face had no emotion, just a completely straight, blank face. I let go of the window button and immediately pressed the lock button, which was followed by the man sticking a gun through the half-open window right at my head as he yelled out something. I heard more voices call back, followed by a group of people running up to the car and trying to open the door handles. They were all yelling commands at each other, but in the heat of the moment, I couldn't make out what they were saying. I was in a full-on shock, staring into the barrel of this guy's gun. If I had to guess, there were at least 5 or 6 people surrounding my car. In this moment, I don't even remember having any thoughts, but I can only describe it as more of a reflex type reaction, because when the man holding the gun looked away for a split second, I suddenly slammed on the gas, flooring it down the street. I'm surprised the man even held on to his gun as he pulled his hand out of the window just in time. Seeing the end of the road though, I quickly did a 3-point turn, and when I faced the other end of the street again, they were all gone. Not a single one of them anywhere on the road, sidewalk, or by the houses. They must have just fled the scene the instant I began driving. As soon as I made it out of the neighborhood, I called 911. These gang-type attacks are relatively common around here, but I never thought it would happen to me. Although nothing came of it, with nobody being found and every piece of evidence leading to nowhere, I see this event as a sort of wake-up call for me. I realized in the moment that the man put a gun to my head that being a big, confident man meant absolutely nothing. Taking a risk like that was purely stupid, because literally anyone with a weapon can have your life in their hands in an instant. If you work a job like this, or do anything where you see strangers regularly, be careful, because putting yourself in a risky situation with a stranger could be the last thing you ever do. During COVID, delivering groceries became pretty popular, and even after, people still had them delivered to their house. I was a picker for those orders, and when we were understaffed, which was pretty much all the time. I was also dropping them off. It wasn't a bad job. I actually enjoyed driving to people's homes. I got to see nice houses, and I didn't have to deal with the constant questions from customers, so I wasn't complaining. I got tips sometimes too, which was nice. Most of the time though, I left the groceries at the doorstep, took a picture as proof, and then left. But I did have moments where I got to meet the people and help them take in the groceries. One instance was this older lady from Serbia. Her name was Vesna, and she loved me. We got to know each other, cause every Thursday she'd have pretty much the same stuff ordered to her house at the exact same time. The first few times I dropped off her groceries, she never came outside, but I'd catch her peeking out the window at me. I'd give a little wave, take my picture, then get back in the truck and leave. I think once she realized it was the same person delivering her groceries every time, she got more comfortable. She came out and greeted me. Then slowly over time I started bringing in the groceries for her and setting them on her counters. She was pretty old, so I was happy to help, and she also tipped nicely too. The more I went, the more I got to know her. She was recently widowed and lived alone. All her children lived far away, and she only saw them once or twice a year for the holidays when she could take the train. She was also retired, but she used to be a broker, which explained her nice house. I always looked forward to Thursdays, and this one was no different. She had ordered everything on Monday, as she always did, and I was dropping off the following Thursday. When I pulled into the driveway, I immediately noticed that something was off. She wasn't at the door like she usually was, but the door was open. I also noticed that all her blinds were closed, which was strange. She always kept them open so her plants could get some sun. I went up to the open front door, and not seeing her, I rang the doorbell. I waited for a bit, but there was no answer. I knocked a few times, and there was no answer again, so I naturally started to become a little worried. She was old, so my immediate thought was maybe she fell or had a heart attack or something. I kinda stood there wondering what I should do. I thought maybe I should go inside, but I was also on the job, and I know the rules are that if no one answers, I just have to leave the groceries on the porch. Being her friend though, I decided it best to go inside and at least put her groceries on the counter like usual. The door was open after all. I grabbed all the bags in both of my hands and walked straight into the kitchen. All the lights were off and everything was quiet. Placing the bags on her counter, I called out her name, again hearing no response. As I started walking out, calling the police crossed my mind, but I didn't really know how to explain this was an emergency, because what if she was just out of the house? Maybe she was just visiting someone, and I just wasted the police officer's time. I really was in a weird position, but I just knew something was wrong. But just as I got to the doorway leading outside, I heard movement in the house upstairs. I felt relieved for a moment, calling out for Vesna, but then there was again no response. No one came to the door or answered me. After a minute of standing there, I kept hearing shuffling movement as if someone was moving stuff around upstairs, and started to feel really awkward and uncomfortable. I headed back outside and got in the car. I sat there for a little while, and after a minute, I saw the curtains on the second story move to the side as if someone was looking at me through the window. I pulled out and drove around the corner, then parked on the street and sat there, just really confused. I didn't know if it was her and she just didn't want to see anyone, or maybe one of her kids. I was also concerned with whether or not I should call the police. I drove off, went around the block, and then decided to drive by her house again. I sat there for a little while again, until I saw the upstairs curtains open. I saw a male figure look out, and then closed it quickly as if seeing my truck scared him. I knew Vesna had 2 daughters, and she had a son, but he had passed away years ago, so I'm not sure who could possibly be at her house with her not there, and where would she be anyway? I had been there too long though, and had to get back to work. The following week, there were no orders from her for the first time in almost a year. I drove by her house after I got off on Thursday, and in the driveway was an officer's car. When I got home, I searched her name and found that she had been filed as missing only a few days after I had been there to deliver her groceries. I noticed the date they said she was likely last at home, though, was the day after she had ordered the groceries. 2 days before, I had gone to her house and saw that man. I went to the police with all the information I had. I don't know who that man was, or if I was close to having something happen to me as well. But it's been nearly 3 years now, and there have been no updates.
This happened to me when I was in high school. Sarah, a friend of mine, had been inviting me over, yet I had declined every single one of the invitations. My parents were strict Christians who never let me sleep out for fear of me getting corrupted and ending up in a burning pit of hell for the rest of my afterlife. On that day, however, they were caught in a snow blizzard out of town and could not be home until the next day. Although I had been rejecting every one of Sarah's invitations, I truly wanted to sleep over at her place to experience what it would be like there. Once I got the call from my parents instructing me to lock the house up and not let anyone in until they were back, I rolled my eyes. I would definitely lock the house up, I thought, and smiled slyly. I phoned Sarah and informed her that I would be spending the night at her place. Her response was affirmative. I could not hide my excitement. It erupted from within me like a plugged volcano. I screamed into the mouthpiece while still on the phone with her. I rushed, grabbing a small backpack and stuffing a single clothing article inside, along with other items I would need over the course of one night. Then, donning my raincoat, I walked the snowy path to Sarah's place after locking the house thoroughly. "Hey, Linda girl," came Sarah's silky voice when she opened the front door. "Hi," I managed to say, feeling a bit shy. "You were so loud over the phone. I loved you that way, baby girl. Don't let the cold in," she smirked. I shrugged in response to her statement, and we burst into laughter. We both had a good laugh over it, and she took my backpack from me inside. "Loosen up, okay? I'm the only one home, too. My folks are out of town, so I got the whole place to myself. I was about to call my boyfriend when you hit me up," she said. "Oh, go on then. Don't let me stop you," was my response. She shook her head slowly at first. I could virtually see the wheels turning in her head before she finally made up her mind and just said, "Okay," picked up her phone and dialed her boyfriend's number. While they were about their conversation, my eyes roamed about the living room. It was so perfect a place. The lighting, the posh upholstery, and wall projector inside the large television, popular in many homes, had a mesmerizing effect. The place was physically appealing, and I couldn't help but feel emotion welling up inside me as I thought of the things my family could not afford to have. I brushed those thoughts aside after a time, and I focused on the reason I was there, to enjoy myself. "So girl, what do I offer you?" she asked. "Whatever you will," I said dryly. She got 2 cold beers and uncorked them, handed one over to me, and took a huge gulp out of the other one. She looked so hot in her white shorts and crop top, and even if I wasn't into girls, I definitely admired her. Soon her boyfriend, Magnus, was at the door, and we were having a mini party with plenty of alcohol. I am alcohol intolerant, so I let them have most of the fun, while I later gulped down can after can of soda. I admired the way that she and her boyfriend got along. They were indeed the model couple. Soon enough, they were both drunk and were sprawled in awkward positions next to each other on the sofa. I was unable to sleep, but was experiencing sharp bursts of energy that made me restless, possibly due to the sugar rush from too much soda. I sat in the sitting room watching TV and sucking at an empty soda can. I was hungry, I thought. Quickly, I grabbed my phone and scrolling through the food category on the online store, I came to a large, juicy box of pizza. I decided to try those out and selected Italian cheese flavor. I was sure that Sarah and her boyfriend would need some food too after their alcohol-induced nap, so I ordered a large 10-inch. I waited for a while, but my order had not yet come in. Sarah and her boyfriend were still out cold, and I doubted I could wait for them to awaken before filling my stomach. I placed another order and waited for about an hour too. Still nothing. It was midnight already, and I sure as hell wouldn't be getting any sleep on an empty stomach when there was something that I could do about it. I decided to check out if I was using the correct delivery address. I was sure, as I remembered Sarah's delivery address and had typed in the correct one, but I wondered why my orders weren't coming in. I grabbed my winter coat and got out of the house. There really had been a blizzard while we were having fun inside. Every inch of the lawn and yard was covered in a sheet of white. The snow was everywhere, and I had to watch my steps to ensure that I didn't trip when I walked out to the front gate. On getting to the gate, I looked out ahead of me and saw a bike. The bike looked very familiar. It was a pizza delivery bike. I walked up to it and looked all around it. I could find nothing. There was no pizza package and there was no rider. Strange, I thought. I decided to walk a little ways forward, and what I found horrified me. The falling snow had created a false path. This path, although seemingly leading to Sarah's place, abruptly ended in a dangerous drop, and I began hoping that the delivery men were not so unfortunate as to have become victims of that deception. My fears were realized when I got to the place I knew the drop existed and peered down. Two men lay motionless and half buried in the massive snow beneath. They were not moving, their limbs bent at awkward angles, and beside them were two large frozen boxes of pizza. I immediately turned around and ran all the way to Sarah's house, doing a terrible job of holding myself together until I got inside and barged into the sitting room, banging on the door so hard that Sarah and her boyfriend were wide awake in a jiffy, both their eyes puffy and wide. What on earth, Linda?" Sarah asked, noting the tears streaming down my face as I looked at her. I sobbed and pointed outside. She and her groggy boyfriends quickly got on their winter coats. They then followed me to the place where the two pizza delivery men were lying unconscious. The looks of alarm on their faces mirrored mine, and Sarah almost got into a fit just as I had. Every trace of sleepiness gone from both their faces. Sarah showed us a safe route to the bottom of the ditch which we took that led us to the men below. We examined both men and found out that they were both alive but had major frostbite and needed serious medical attention. The body of one of the men was hidden partially by a huge object covered with snow, which turned out to be his own bike. This man looked to be in much worse condition than his colleague because it appeared he had broken his spine. We lifted him up first from beneath the bike and took him inside the house, then came back for his colleague. Sarah quickly called the ambulance while I prepared a hot bath for both men. The man whose bike had fallen on him appeared to have just minutes before he was gone, as his breathing was very shallow and near imperceptible. When the hot bath was ready, we mixed it up so it would be temperate, and using pieces of cloth, all three of us worked on the men's bodies. Eventually an ambulance arrived and declared the one whose spine was broken dead on the spot. The second one they took in and said that they were there to admit him to an ICU ward if he was to have any chance of survival. They said the police would be there soon to take down our statements. Who ordered for a pizza? Magnus? Did you? Sarah asked her boyfriend. Nope, he replied. They both then looked at me, and I buried my face between my arms. Sarah came and held me in her arms, and Magnus put his hands over the both of us. We stayed that way for some time, until I happened to glance at my house and saw the headlights of my parents' car, just moving slowly and carefully into the snow-covered driveway. My parents were back. One look at my wristwatch told me that it was 5:36 a.m. They had brought my sleepover to an abrupt end. I waved Sarah and her boyfriend goodbye and sneaked into my house, getting inside just before my parents could come out of the car.
Our official merch store is finally here. If you want to support more of our channel, check out our merch shop. The link is in the description down below. See you on the next video.